Whispers of the Ancients. Episode 1, The Caral People, Cradle of the Andes, approximately 3000 BCE, before the pyramids of Egypt, before the rise of the Maya, before writing was etched into clay in Mesopotamia. There was Caral, a city older than history remembers, cradled in the misted valleys of coastal Peru, where sand meets river and silence holds the memory of a people long forgotten. Take a deep breath and listen carefully, because what you are about to hear is not just a story, it's a whisper from the dawn of civilization in the Americas, a murmur of ancient stone, wind-carved pyramids, and music that once echoed beneath a starlit sky. This is the story of the Caral civilization, the Cradle of the Andes. Segment 1, setting the scene, the Supe Valley far north of Lima, where the Supe River winds through a desert carved by time, lies a vast plain, dry, sun-baked, seemingly empty. But beneath this desolate landscape sleeps one of humanity's oldest cities. This is Caral, a metropolis born nearly 5,000 years ago. To walk its ruins today is to step on sacred ground, not just because it is old, but because it challenges what we thought we knew about civilization. Caral flourished around 3000 BCE, making it one of the oldest known urban centers in the world. While the world beyond was still learning to sow grain and build huts, the people of Caral were constructing monumental pyramids, laying out central plazas, and crafting a life of order, ritual, and peace. No writing survives. No tales were carved into stone. And yet, the city speaks. Through its layout, its silent staircases, and the instruments left behind. It tells us, we were here, we built, we believed, we thrived, without war. Segment 2, Discovery. Bringing Caral back to light for thousands of years, the city of Caral lay buried, forgotten by history and swallowed by time. It wasn't until the 1990s that the world was reintroduced to this ancient marvel, thanks to the tireless work of Peruvian archaeologist Ruth Shady. She ventured into the Supe Valley with a question on her mind. Could this dusty plateau hold secrets older than the Inca? What she uncovered was far more than anyone expected. Under layers of dust and earth lay 6 immense pyramidal structures, each with broad staircases and elevated platforms. Surrounding them, residential zones, sunken circular plazas, and open gathering spaces, and most remarkably, no signs of war, no weapons, no walls, no mass, graves. Instead, she found flutes made of condor and pelican bones, gourds, fabrics, and the remains of feasts, signs of music, ritual, community, and celebration. Caral, it seemed, was a city built not on conquest, but on cooperation. Segment 3, the city plan, order in. Architecture. Caral's architecture reflects a carefully planned society, with both sacred and secular areas. At its center lies the main pyramid, over 60 feet tall, with a grand staircase leading to a summit platform. Here, rituals were likely held under the stars, watched by a priestly elite or spiritual leaders. Nearby, the circular plaza, perfectly symmetrical and sunk into the ground, invites theories about its use. Was it for community gatherings, ritual dances, astronomy? We may never know for certain, but its symmetry suggests intentional design and social function. The city's residential sectors were laid out with purpose, not randomly scattered, but carefully zoned. Evidence shows a class system. Elites lived near sacred centers, while common laborers lived on the outskirts. Yet this separation wasn't enforced with fortresses or fences, only design and perhaps shared cultural values. Between the sacred pyramids, pathways and open-air courts gave space for movement and trade, suggesting a bustling, vibrant community where daily life and sacred life blended seamlessly. And still, no evidence of violence, no burned ruins, no blood-soaked battlegrounds, just order, harmony, and a trace of human hands shaping a city for the future. Segment for trade and innovation, a network of exchange though nestled deep in the desert. Caral was no isolated village. It was a center of trade, linked to a network that stretched from the Andes mountains to the Pacific coast. Archaeologists have discovered goods that came from hundreds of Miles away, spondylus shells from Ecuador, quartz, and obsidian from the highlands, and even cotton, which was crucial for making fishing nets. These nets, in turn, were traded with coastal fishing villages, an exchange that formed the economic backbone of the region. Imagine it: fish for cotton, shells for stone, music for maize. Caral's success was built not on conquest but connection. Their economic model was sustainable, based on specialization, trade partnerships, and shared spiritual practices. This speaks to a remarkable level of societal coordination. At a time when most human communities were small, scattered, and tribal, Caral was not just surviving, it was thriving with diplomacy, not domination. Segment 5: Music, Ritual, and Meaning. Among the most remarkable discoveries in Caral are its instruments, flutes made from animal bones, carefully carved and tuned. These weren't just toys, they were tools of ritual. The people of Caral likely used music in ceremony, perhaps in connection with astronomical events or agricultural festivals. Some instruments were found in sacred spaces, suggesting they held symbolic or spiritual meaning. Music in this ancient city may have replaced the drumbeats of war. Ritual life in Caral revolved around the sun, the seasons, and perhaps the winds that swept across the valley. Burnt offerings, signs of controlled fire pits, and structured gathering sites indicate organized spiritual practices, possibly guided by a priestly class. Even without writing, we see the story unfold: a people guided by rhythm, bound by belief, and committed to living in balance. Segment 6: A civilization without war. Perhaps the most extraordinary truth about Caral is not just its age, but how it functioned. In all the archaeological digs, spanning decades, not a single weapon of war has been found. No spears, no arrows, no fortification walls, no imagery glorifying battle or conquest, no trauma scars on human remains. This was not a city forged through blood, but through balance, culture, and collective purpose. At the time when other civilizations were establishing dominance through violence, Caral chose harmony. What does it mean that the oldest city in the Americas, one of the oldest on Earth, was built on the foundation of peaceful coexistence? This question haunts and humbles modern historians. It suggests that hierarchy, urban development, and religion do not require violence, that a society could rise with complex leadership, economic trade, and organized faith without a standing army or internal conflict. It invites us to reconsider our assumptions about what makes a civilized society. Could Caral be a model or a reminder of paths we once walked and perhaps lost? Segment 7: Agriculture and Adaptation. Though Caral sat in an arid desert, the nearby Soup River became the city's lifeblood. With a deep understanding of the seasons, soil, and water flow, the Caral people developed sophisticated agricultural systems. They grew squash, beans, guava, lucuma, and even cotton, which, though inedible, was perhaps their most valuable crop. Cotton was used to produce fishing nets, textiles, and cords indispensable to the wider region. Their fields were irrigated with stone-lined canals, some of which still exist today, a testament to their foresight and engineering precision. Caral teaches us that survival isn't always about domination. Sometimes it's about learning from the land and working with it, not against it. Through shared labor and seasonal cooperation, they cultivated more than crops, they cultivated community. Segment 8: Social structure and governance. While Caral had no written language, evidence suggests a clear and organized social hierarchy. The central sacred zone, home to the pyramids and ceremonial spaces, was reserved for the elite, likely a priestly or administrative class. These leaders may have overseen calendar rituals, resource distribution, and construction planning, unifying the population not by law or force, but by shared belief and communal rhythm. The surrounding zones housed workers, farmers, artisans, and traders, all playing distinct roles in maintaining the city's needs. This division of labor, with specialized functions and centralized organization, suggests a proto-state society, complex yet stable. And yet, no palaces have been found, no thrones, no golden crowns. Leadership in Caral may not have been about excess or ego, but about stewardship and spiritual duty. This kind of governance is rare in ancient history, where power usually meant control through fear. Caral seems to have fostered leadership through ritual, respect, and reverence. Segment 9. The role of women. One of the most compelling aspects of Caral is the role of women. Among the skeletal remains discovered, some were buried with prestige items, finely woven fabrics, ornamental objects, and tools typically associated with leadership or ritual authority. This challenges the common assumption that early civilizations were strictly patriarchal. Instead, Caral may have offered gender-inclusive leadership where power was shared, or at the very least, accessible to both men and women. In the silence of these ancient graves, we may be hearing the faint echoes of equality. Segment 10. Caral and the cosmos. As with many early civilizations, astronomy played a vital role in Caral's culture. Archaeologists have noted that the layout of key structures aligns with celestial events, particularly the solstices. One theory suggests that the pyramids and sunken circular plazas served not just as gathering places, but also as observatories tracking the movement of the sun, moon, and possibly planets. Imagine standing atop a pyramid platform, watching the horizon as the sun sets perfectly in line with a mountain pass, marking the change of seasons, the time to plant, or the return of sacred days. These alignments demonstrate not only engineering skill, but a deep spiritual connection to the cosmos, a worldview that placed humanity within a vast, rhythmic universe. In Caral, life was not random. It was harmonized with the stars. Segment 11. Decline and abandonment. No great civilization lasts forever. After centuries of flourishing, Caral began to decline, though not from war, but likely environmental pressures. Changes in climate, including long droughts, may have disrupted agriculture and strained trade networks. By around 1800 BCE, the city was gradually abandoned, its pyramids fell silent, its music faded into wind, its people moved on, their memory buried beneath centuries of sand. But Caral didn't disappear completely. The cultural DNA of its ideas, urban planning, sacred ritual, peaceful governance, may have flowed into the civilizations that followed. The Chavin, the Nazca, the Inca, all may have carried fragments of this ancient light. Segment 12. Rediscovery and global recognition. When Ruth Shady's work brought Caral to the world stage, the archaeological community was stunned. Here was a site that rewrote timelines, showing that complex society emerged in the Americas independently, not as a delayed echo of Mesopotamia or Egypt. In 2009, Caral was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, affirming its place as one of humanity's foundational cities. Today, tourists walk its dusty paths, scholars study its layout, and storytellers, like us, give voice to its silence. Caral is no longer forgotten. It is remembered as a birthplace of civilization. Segment 13. Final reflections. A legacy beyond time. What does Caral teach us? That greatness is not always born in blood. That cities can rise not through war, but through ritual art, music, and unity. That the past still whispers to us if we are quiet enough to hear. In the Soup Valley, stones still remember. The wind still moves where flutes once sang, and the pyramids, though worn by time, still stand as a testament to a people who dared to build, not to conquer, but to commune. Segment 14. A civilization built on symbols, not scripts, unlike the Maya or the Inca who came much later. The Caral civilization left behind no written records. No glyphs, scrolls, or stone engravings tell us their names, their stories, or their laws. And yet, we understand them, because they spoke through architecture, through placement, through the silence between the stones. Their pyramids spoke of order. Their plazas echoed community. Their flutes sang the sacred. This was a culture that communicated not with the pen, but with geometry, rhythm, and space in a way. Caral is the earliest form of visual storytelling in the Americas, and each structure, each artifact becomes a sentence crafted in ritual, sculpted in belief, and delivered across millennia. Segment 15. Engineering without metals or wheels. In an age without metals, the wheel, or even beasts of burden, Caral's people engineered a monumental urban center using only stone, fire, rope, and their hands. Pyramids constructed with bundles of reeds filled with stones called shikras were used to stabilize foundations. These bundles served both as structural units and as early seismic engineering. Against earthquakes, this innovation advanced and efficient shows a society that understood not just how to build, but how to endure. Even today, these shikra-based constructions remain intact, standing tall in one of the most seismically active zones on Earth. Where many later buildings crumbled, Caral's temples stood strong, not because of wealth, but because of wisdom. Segment 16, Sacred Fire and the Circle of Rituals. In the sunken circular plazas, ash pits have been found lined with charcoal, burnt offerings, and residues of resins and herbs. This was no ordinary cooking fire. These were sacred flames, likely lit in ceremonies dedicated to deities of nature, the sun, the earth, or possibly even celestial cycles. These fires may have marked seasonal changes, agricultural rites, or spiritual renewal. They burned in view of the community, not hidden, not exclusive. Participation, it seems, was not reserved for the elite alone. Rituals in Caral may have been collective events, moments when everyone, leaders and laborers alike, gathered to commune with the cosmos. A fire, lit not to destroy, but to connect. Segment 17, Education and Knowledge Transfer in a Civilization Without Writing. How did knowledge endure? Through ritual, through apprenticeship, and through observation. Elders would have passed down building techniques, spiritual stories, astronomical patterns, and trade practices verbally. Perhaps in song, dance, or repeated ceremonial reenactment. In Caral, education may not have happened in classrooms, but in the plazas on the terraces. And beside the firelight, each generation watched, listened, and remembered. And that memory became the library of a civilization. Segment 18, Climate, Challenge, and Change. As centuries passed, the climate began to shift. The once predictable river cycles grew erratic. Droughts intensified. The Soup Valley, once generous, began to withhold. Trade routes faltered. Harvests thinned. The vibrant music of Caral grew quieter, until one day it stopped. But there was no sign of catastrophe, no invasion, no mass graves. Caral's decline appears to have been gradual, graceful, and intentional. Its people didn't fight. They migrated, carrying their knowledge into the mountains, the coast, and the jungles, and perhaps, just perhaps, they seeded new cultures, new rhythms, new civilizations. Segment 19, Cultural Echoes in Later Civilizations. Though Caral itself vanished, many of its ideas seem to resonate through time. The concept of monumental pyramids, urban planning with sacred zones, circular ceremonial plazas, astronomical alignment in architecture, music in ritual, all of these reappear in later cultures. The Chavin, the Nazca, the Moqui, and even the Inca, whether through direct descent or cultural memory. Caral's influence rippled across the Andes like waves in a still lake. Even the Inca's sophisticated road systems, record-keeping quippus, and cosmological worldview may trace faint roots to this ancient city by the Soup. In this way, Caral was not just a civilization, it was a seed from which much of Andean greatness may have grown. Segment 20, Message for the modern world. Caral's rediscovery in our time comes with a deeper message. In an era obsessed with power, expansion, and military strength, Caral reminds us that it is possible to thrive without violence, that harmony with nature, collaboration between neighbors, respect for the cosmos, and collective purpose can build cities that last. Its people did not write history, but they became it. Their legacy isn't a story carved in stone. It is a question whispered to the future. What if civilization didn't have to conquer to be great? What if progress was measured not in war, but in wisdom? Segment 21, Closing Narrative, Standing Among Ghosts. And so, we return to the quiet valley of the Soup. The wind still dances between pyramid walls. The plazas, though silent, seem to wait, as if expecting music to rise again from the earth. The flutes are gone, the fires are cold, but the memory endures in the layout of a city, in the patience of its stones, and in the questions it leaves behind. The Caral people did not vanish. They became the earth, the wind, the myth, and now, through voices like ours, they live again. As you've been listening to Whispers of the Ancients, Episode 1, The Caral People, Cradle of the Andes. Stay with us as we journey deeper into the forgotten empires and sacred worlds of the ancient Americas.